Happy New Year, Lord Peter.
Happy New Year to you, Marty. The year that Australian rugby turns it around. The year that Australian rugby comes from deep, dark, down at the bottom of a coal mine at midnight and struggles to the surface and starts dancing. Dancing, Marty. It's going to happen this year. You got to believe it.
Well, you've got a great coach, but you've had a great coach in Dave Rennie, and you had a great coach in Robbie Deans, and now you've got another great New Zealand coach in Joe Schmidt. The key question for me is, and there is doubt in my voice, as there should be, because I think this is like giving Joe Schmidt the Highlanders job. Yes, he's a brilliant coach, but if he was coach of the Highlanders right now, are they going to win the Super Rugby competition? The answer is no, and the reason for that is because they don't have a good enough squad. So where in the next 2 years is he going to find 15 to 20 players that he needs to bolster your ranks? Where are these players exactly?
So this is what you think, am I right? This
is what I think.
Have you mistaken me for somebody who cares what you think?
There is always that, Peter, but the other thing is I also want to establish early this absolute BS rot media diatribe and painting picture of, it's New Zealand needs Australian rugby to be strong. We don't care. I mean, can I say that loud and clear? We don't care how good or not you are. 180 minutes against you twice a year makes zero difference to how good we are.
Marty, you do need us because otherwise it's gonna end up like the cricket. That there's only three countries that count in the cricket, with an honourable mention to New Zealand. Right now, you got India, England, and Australia for Test cricket, and then sometimes New Zealand. We want you to be strong at cricket because it gets a bit grim playing India and only getting interested in Test cricket when there's India on and England on, and we do get interested. But right now, if it's West Indies, it's a waste of time.
Totally.
If it's Pakistan, it's a waste of time. Totally. If it's South Africa, it's a waste of time. So you do need us because we're brothers, we're sisters, we're cousins, and we want to be strong. And in terms of Mr. Schmidt, it's very interesting. I mean, I put this out the other day. You know that obesity drug, Ozempic. I'm sure people are talking about it in New Zealand as they're talking about it in Australia. It's 25% of the GDP, the gross domestic product of Denmark. 25%. If you look up for New Zealand exporting rugby coaches, you're up to 23%. I mean, they're everywhere. I can't spit over my shoulder in Australia without hitting a famous Kiwi rugby coach right in the eye. And, with Joe Schmidt, I mean, prima facie, he's what we need because we had Eddie Jones, as you know, he was half... Well, he was a combination, basically, of a human cattle prod, a stick of dynamite, and he was a disruptor. And the whole thing, to mix up my metaphors, just blew up. The whole thing just blew up in our face and damn nigh destroyed Australian rugby, at least for that year. And what we hear about Joe Schmidt, and he's not well known in Australia at all, but what we hear is that he's Bob the Builder, he can build it, that he can fix it. He's a guy that basically starts to put things together a la Dave Rennie. I must say he does sound like a Dave Rennie kind of bloke, which is, I don't think, well, you'll tell me if I'm wrong, is Joe Schmidt much of a media presence?
No, zero. Less than zero. That press conference at his announcement is the last time that you'll hear from him unless it is the obligatory post-match one, mate. He just doesn't do the media, doesn't do it.
Yeah. Well, Dave Rennie didn't do much media, and it may be that Dave Rennie did do media, but nobody paid attention. He just seemed like a nice bloke who was doing a competent job. Whereas Eddie Jones, as you know, I mean, geez, you'd mark him down for rugby coaching. From press conferences, he was fantastic for selling newspapers, as good as they come. Hold the front page. I mean, you're going to be second up on the news. Eddie Jones gave brilliant press conferences. Sadly, they were press conferences about how Australian rugby was stinking up the joint. But what we do need, I mean, the point that Eddie Jones made is bar the bounce of the ball. against Fiji, like they only lost to Fiji by a smidgen, and had it bounced a different way, Australian rugby might have won. That there are elements in Australian rugby, if you start to put them all together, that can be good. And I suspect what Schmidt will do will be, the first thing is to bring back some experience. I don't know if Michael Hooper will make the team again. I don't know if he's available again. But clearly, taking the youngest squad of the 2020 World Cup teams, to take the youngest squad of the lot, simply did not work. We need people back there who, when it all hits the fan, have been there before. In fact, I had lunch with John Eales on last Thursday. We were talking about that fantastic match. You might remember, I think 2001, 2002, when the Wallabies were down 24 points to
2000
nil
it was,
after 8 minutes. But I was talking to John about, well, what did you do when you were down 24-0 after 8 minutes? And the answer was, we went to set pieces. We went to not set pieces and scrums and lineouts, but they had moves and manoeuvres that they'd practiced that they knew would work. They go back to stable things, experienced things, structural things that they knew would work, and the game started to sort itself out. Now, when that happened against Wales and against Fiji in the World Cup for the Wallabies, they couldn't behind the goalpost go to move B52, backman Turner overdrive J4, because you guys that hadn't met before, they didn't know each other.
The only question I got for you, Peter, is very simple. Is he able to solve the situation you explained to me when we were both in Paris, that when the ball goes up in the air, you can have as many backman Turner overdrive 84 B plus C minus as you like. One guy calls my ball and the other guy thinks, that's my guy calling my ball and I'll leave him to catch that ball. Is he capable of doing that?
What you're talking about is, you and I had a discussion about that the training I went to in Paris with the Wallabies.
That's right, where they had 19 guys and computers behind the goals and 4 drones in the air and everything else.
It was extraordinary. It was an industrial operation where you had 30 blokes out on the field, the squad of Wallabies. You had at least that many people in support staff. You had 2 drones in the sky recording, watching, feeding the computers at the end of the field, and the 2 blokes under the marquee watching the screen and feeding them God knows what, angles of attack, speed, heart rate, God knows what. Come the game against Fiji, 3 minutes into the second half, the ball goes up, the Fijians put the ball up, under the Wallabies, 5 guys are milling about, not one of them shouted out mine.
Yeah.
The ball landed, the Fijians got it back, they scored, and that was the end of Australian rugby for 2023. And my point was, you can't have a $30 million industrial operation if nobody knows how to shout out mine. And will Joe Schmidt do that? Absolutely, because basically his hallmark, as I understand it, and I suspect you know better than me, is get the basics right and build from there. But if you try to do esoteric moves right up the top when you can't get the basics, you are wasting your time.
Devlin. You better believe it! The Platform.